"You're stealing, ma'am." The voice of Richard Morrison cut through the quiet hum of Riverside Market like a knife through silk. His finger pointed at the elderly woman in the red cardigan with the force of accusation. "Put those items back right now, or I'm calling the police." Every head in the produce section turned as one. Shopping carts stopped mid-aisle. Conversations died on people's lips. Phones rose slowly, almost unconsciously, capturing what looked like justice being served. The woman stood frozen, one hand clutching her worn canvas bag, the other reaching toward a display of apples. Her eyes went wide with shock. I was just," she started, her voice trembling. "Don't give me excuses," Richard snapped, stepping closer in his perfectly pressed navy suit. His designer shoes clicked against the polished floor with authority. "I saw you slipping items into that bag. Security." He waved toward the back of the store, performing his righteousness for everyone watching. "We have protocols for people like you." The woman's hand moved to her chest, her breathing quick and shallow. Behind her, a young man in a bright yellow hoodie stood paralyzed, his eyes darting between her and the growing crowd. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again, uncertainty written across his young face. "Sir, please," the woman said softly, her dignity holding even as her hand shook. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Richard said loudly, making sure everyone could hear, "is thinking you could get away with this in MY store." He straightened his tie, puffing up with the weight of his position. "I'm the assistant manager here, and I will not tolerate theft. Do you understand what you're doing to honest businesses? To hard-working people?" A woman with a toddler in her cart looked uncomfortable but turned away, suddenly very interested in the bananas. An older man in a golf shirt met the accused woman's eyes for just a moment, then studied his shopping list intently. Everyone was watching, but no one was seeing. "Richard, maybe we should just—" a stock clerk named Jenny started, taking a hesitant step forward. "Stay out of this, Jenny." Richard cut her off, without looking away from his target. "This is about maintaining standards, protecting our community." He said our community, like drawing a line in the sand, deciding who belonged and who didn't based on a cardigan with loose threads and shoes that had seen better days. The woman's eyes glistened, but she held her head up. "I have money to pay," she said quietly, reaching into her bag. "Don't you dare reach into that bag." Richard barked, causing several people to gasp. He pulled out his phone with theatrical precision. "That's it. I'm calling the authorities. You can explain yourself to them." His finger hovered over the screen, savoring the moment of power. The automatic doors at the front of the store whooshed open with sudden force. A different kind of silence fell over the produce section, not empty, but heavy with anticipation. Footsteps approached, measured and purposeful, the sound of expensive leather on tile. But before we continue with what happened next, if you believe in stories that restore your faith in humanity, hit that subscribe button for PureKind Tales. We share real stories of justice, kindness, and karma every single day. Now back to the story. A man in his early 30s appeared around the corner of the cereal aisle, dressed in surgical scrubs under an open white coat. Dr. Marcus Chun, according to the hospital ID badge hanging around his neck. His face carried the exhaustion of a long shift, but his eyes were sharp and focused. They landed on the scene, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition followed immediately by alarm. "What's going on here?" His voice carried natural authority, the kind earned through years of life-and-death decisions. Richard turned, irritation flashing across his face at the interruption. "This doesn't concern you, sir. I'm handling a theft situation." "That woman you're accusing," Marcus said, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "Do you know who she is?" "I don't need to know who," Richard started. "You're pointing your finger at Dorothy Chun." Marcus moved forward, placing himself between Richard and the elderly woman. "And before you say another word, you should know something." He paused, and the weight of the silence pulled every eye in the store toward them. "She's my mother." Richard's face went from flushed with authority to pale with dawning uncertainty. Look, it doesn't matter who. It matters." Marcus cut him off firmly. "Because while you're accusing her of stealing, you have no idea who you're talking to." He turned to his mother, his voice softening. "Mom, are you okay?" Dorothy nodded slowly, but her hands still trembled. The young man in the yellow hoodie finally found his voice. "I was with her, sir. She didn't steal anything. We were just shopping together." Marcus's jaw tightened as he turned back to Richard. "Let me tell you about this woman you just humiliated in front of everyone." Dorothy Chin spent 37 years as a surgical nurse. 37 years holding hearts in her hands. 37 years being the steady presence when patients were scared and families were falling apart. Richard tried to speak, but Marcus wasn't finished. "She worked double shifts to put me through medical school. She missed holidays and birthdays to save lives. She taught me what real service looks like, not the kind where you wear a name tag and feel important." His eyes locked onto Richard's, and the assistant manager seemed to shrink. "She taught me that everyone deserves dignity, regardless of what they're wearing or how they look." A store security guard had arrived, tablet in hand. "Sir," I pulled up the security footage. He glanced at Richard nervously. "The camera shows her putting items into her bag to free her hands. She has arthritis and was reorganizing to make it easier to carry everything." She was heading to checkout. The color completely drained from Richard's face. Around them, phones that had been recording his moment of authority were now capturing his fall. The crowd that had been silent witnesses to someone's humiliation now stood as jury to his judgment. I didn't." Richard stammered, his confidence crumbling like sand. I was just trying to protect." "You were trying to feel powerful," Marcus said quietly, and somehow that was worse than if he'd shouted. "You saw someone you thought couldn't fight back, and you decided that was enough." Richard looked at Dorothy, his eyes desperate. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I should have." Dorothy Chin didn't need his apology. She'd had her dignity all along. She simply looked at him with the same compassion she'd given to countless patients over decades, seeing his humanity even when he'd failed to see hers. Then she took her son's arm, and together they walked toward the checkout counter. The young man in the yellow hoodie, Dorothy's grandson, there to help her shop, gathered her items carefully and followed. Richard stood alone in the produce section, surrounded by the same crowd that had watched him perform his authority. Now their eyes held something else: judgment, disappointment, the uncomfortable recognition of their own silence. The store manager appeared, face grim. "Richard, my office." "Now, respect doesn't begin when you learn someone's title. It begins with seeing them as human. So what would you do if you witnessed something like this? Would you speak up or stay silent? What did you think about how Dorothy handled it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and tell us where you're watching from. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Remember, respect costs nothing, but its absence costs everything. Thanks for watching PureKind Tales, and we'll see you in the next story.